welcome back to On the Count Podcast. I'm your host, Pedro Lugo. I also have with us Keone Stevens. Today is a live show. We'll be interviewing Malcolm Powell, which is really one of our first guests that we had on the show when we first began. I've known Malcolm now for, 20 years. It's been 20 years since I met Malcolm. The situation we met wasn't the best, but I would say he left an impression. No, it wasn't. I hear him laughing. That's Keone laughing. It wasn't the best situation to meet somebody, but
Well, I mean, in your line of work that you had as a corrections officer,
no,
what would be the
no, I know. It's just funny because I say it's been 20 years that I've known him.
yeah.
Um, he's always left an impression of me because he's
Mhm,
one of the guys that I knew was continuously trying to better himself
mhm.
and fight against all odds. I mean, he made that switch in his life, and he said, "No, I'm going to switch it for the betterment of myself, no matter what." And it makes me proud that now that we're both outside of the system. I do call him friend because he's been in my car. We've traveled before to do things, to talk to other people about, especially younger generation, about prison and how to avoid it and just sharing stories. So, yeah,
You mean to tell me there's people in prison that actually try to better themselves?
you're surprised.
No way.
Surprisingly, yeah, they do. They do. And many of them, surprisingly, a lot of them do succeed. There's a lot of people out there that keep it quiet, their success after prison, because they don't let a lot of people know about it. But um, a lot of people get to succeed. And
It's not only them that keeps it quiet. Well, one of the reasons, and I've talked about this with friends that I had that have lived in not so great areas or had not so great friends, and they get out and do better. You don't want to tell everybody because there's people that prey on your downfall, and there's also people that won't help you stay in the light that you've found. But also, you know, the public kind of keeps it quiet because we have to still have that, stigma
yeah,
that everybody in prison belonged in prison. They all did something wrong. There's no innocent people in prison, even though we find out every year the amount of people that get exonerated. Pedro, if I told you this, African Americans, because this is a stat that's always thrown out, African Americans commit 50% of the crime in America, and Hispanics commit, it was something like 22% of the crime in America, right? That's a stat they always throw out, right?
right.
But what they don't tell you is African Americans make up 76% of the exonerations. 67% of the exonerations, and Hispanics make up about 18% of the exoneration. So what does that tell me? That tells you blacks and Hispanics get arrested at a much alarming rate. Their communities are usually policed way more, but arrest counts as goes to a crime statistic.
Yeah,
Not the
well,
fact that they were let off, not the fact that the case was dropped, not the fact that they've gone to prison and found out they were innocent. None of that stuff gets promoted when they throw out those stats. So
yeah, the other thing that doesn't get promoted is those that come out and do succeed. Every time you hear something, is due to the fact, oh, he was supposed to be in prison. He was let out. Look what he's doing now, and all the crime, or he murdered, or whatever it is. But we don't usually go around talking about those other stories of those that have succeeded and done well, or doing good for the community, or it's a lot of them.
well,
But
that's another problem
that's not a
too,
story.
Pedro. The
Say
dis-
what?
that's another problem too. The disproportionate amount of why people go to jail. I've seen because I watch a lot of forensic files. I watch a lot of court TV, and I'll see people get a lighter sentence for attempted murder or murder than someone getting found with with weed on them.
Oh,
or
yeah, oh God, I lived in North Carolina quite a bit, and I've met more than one person that's been to the state prison for murder,
Mhm.
and they're out.
Yeah,
They were out for murder, and I
yeah.
had people in prison for drugs. They were doing. 25 to life
Yeah,
until you get out.
it's insane. And then and not to get too long because we do have a guest,
Yeah.
but it's insane because we talk about people who get out of prison and commit another crime again. Let's be clear. We know there are people that are going to be
Oh,
criminals.
no,
We
yeah.
know there's going to be bad people. There are going to be people that are going to be in the revolving door. But we also have people like our guest today that when they do get out, they're trying to make their lives better, but society makes it harder. We know society's gotten a little better, but at the time that Malcolm got out, a lot of the places were still not even letting you get an ID. A lot of the places were still making you put that you were a convict or an ex inmate on your application and they wouldn't hire you. So, how do we want this person to turn their life around if no one will hire them and they can't even get the essential things you need to get a job? And then you're surprised because 18 months after having kids and not being able to feed your family, they went back to robbing people. Where's the surprise in that? They went back to what worked. Christopher says everybody in prison is innocent. Lawyers f them. Well, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna agree with that.
I
I know what you're saying, Chris. I know what you mean.
yeah, well, you need a lawyer. You need a
Yeah.
lawyer. You need a lawyer.
Um, I think what Chris is saying was worse back in the day, especially in the South. You take someone like, for instance, our guest here. My uncles used to tell me about. You know, you fit the description. We've all heard that, right? You fit the description, and then you fit the description, and your public defender comes up and says, "Well, I know you're innocent, but here's the deal: you either plead innocent and go to and have the possibility of going to jail for 10 years, or you plead guilty and we can get you 18 months and probation." What? You know I'm innocent, but you know I'm gonna get screwed. So these are my offers. Ah, it is Shawshank Redemption. What a great movie. Um,
Oh,
but anyway, before we get too much down the rabbit hole, let's go ahead and welcome back our first. He was the first person that we actually interviewed because our first two episodes we didn't do interviews. So he was the first person that kicked off this podcast way back in 2022.
wow. Okay.
2022. Let's welcome Malcolm Powell.
Malcolm, how you been?
Awesome, awesome, sir. How about yourself?
I've been good. I've been good. We haven't traveled in a little while, but I was telling about some things we've done in the past. I know
Yes,
you
sir.
heard that.
Let's refresh everybody because we have a
Yeah.
Malcolm. Like I said, when we did the interview with you, we had 500 subscribers. We got 32,000 now, trying to get to 50. So there's a lot of people. We won't do a whole episode on your backstory, but if you can kind of just give us that backstory of where you were, how you ended up inside, meeting Pedro, and then the steps you took, and then what happened when you got out. If you could just briefly take us through that, that would be great.
Okay. In 1995, I was convicted of conspiracy to distribute crack cocaine, possession of a firearm during a drug trafficking offense. I was 22 years old at the time, and I was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, of which you have to do 85% of your time. Prior to that, I, grew up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, and a lot of individuals, young black males, seen the crack era as a means and a way to escape poverty, which, it was a decision that I made. Put back in those same circumstances, I most likely would choose the same opportunity, the same route, But having, did the time that I did in prison, I went in prison with the mentality that, wow, 22 years old with a 22-year sentence, I didn't even really think I was going to make it home. It's not life, but at that time, just the numbers was just staggering. When the judge actually read my sentence, My aunt almost fainted in the courtroom. 22 years is almost to some people like a lifetime. So at that time, I knew that I couldn't return to the streets if I returned with the same mentality and mindset that I went in with. So I hit the ground just trying to research my case, reading every book I can, uh, getting into various different programs, and down the road is where I met Mr. Lugo, and we connected doing programs in the prison system, mentorships with younger guys who was coming into the prison. Because I was one of those who had that mentality that every moment counts. you know, every moment counts. And I didn't go in and let the time do me. I actually did the time day by day and worked on it, to prepare myself for when I do come home. And that's pretty much how I connected with Mr. Lugo.
You came home when? So
I came home May 2012. I was actually um, released what they call under the crack law because they changed it.
changes.
And when they changed it, it was during Eric Holder and President Obama during their time in office where they changed the law that was sentencing us so harshly for crack being, and when powder cocaine is really the same drug, while whites were getting sentenced to less time for coke, we was getting sentenced like 100 times harsher for crack cocaine. And
Not
so what
only
they,
not only cocaine, heroin too. It was a lot of those heroin, opioids, all of the drugs that weren't considered ethnic used drugs weren't being penalized
As
so harshly
yeah,
um, until we started doing them. Um, what was so you the year you went into jail was what year again? 1995,
95, January of 95,
and you got out in 2012. Of course,
Yep, May
the thing
2020.
the first thing everybody wants to know is what was the thing when you got out that you were like, wait, we can do, they have what? We could do what? Because that's a long time and things change, technology changes. What was that thing that made you go, wow, this is what I missed?
To be honest with you, when I received immediate release from Butler, North Carolina, that's where Mr. Lugo was working at.
Mhm.
I was aware of cell phones and things of that nature. I actually the first thing that I wanted to do when I got to the bus station was buy a stick of gum.
What?
I was going to ask you that. What was the first thing you bought
A
when you got
stick
out?
of
A,
gum.
a stick of double mint gum because they didn't have that in prison. The
Wait a
the
minute.
the small things of life is what people take for granted, but to us is magnified. I went to the with the money they gave me that I had on my books. I went straight to the machine and bought a pack of double mint gum and a pack of juicy fruit. I think before I left from Raleigh, Durham, before I made it to Winston Salem on a Greyhound, I think I had chewed both packs. Just so happy to be able to have a pack of gum.
So y'all know how to take ramen noodles and make lasagna and wine that tastes better than what's in the store from a toilet, but y'all can't get bubble gum. Y'all get cigarettes in
Oh,
there. Y'all,
they bubble
Couldn't
gum,
you
man.
couldn't get the, I think they were so focused on the cigarettes and whatever they was overlooking the gum. I personally I wanted some gum. And
that is
yeah, I yes sir, that's how it went.
That's one thing that us, even as officers, we tell the officers don't bring chewing gum into the institution.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
bring it to work. Bring mints or whatever, but don't bring chewing gum
Why?
because if you get enough chewing gum, you can block the locks,
Block.
and it
Oh.
jams the locks, and you can hide stuff. You can, even though they use toothpaste for caulking, but
Exactly.
um, chewing gums makes a better caulking to hide stuff in the walls, and is easier to get to because they can cover it up, and it's just easier to pull out.
Ah.
And yeah, and you don't want to have them. It's just one of those things.
Is that
You-
why they always say if people in jail were as resourceful as they are in jail outside of jail, they'd all be millionaires?
You'd be surprised at the stuff that people. I've seen guys take a mop bucket and get cooking oil out the kitchen, take some type of electronic, whatever the case may be, and make what they call a stinger. Mr. Lugo familiar with it. They will fry chicken and egg rolls in the unit in a mop bucket,
in a
Oh.
mop bucket.
deep frying. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
they definitely resourceful.
very ingenious dad. I told Keone the story about this guy that had made the best stinger I ever saw was the one with a hot plate, had a control and everything. He controlled the heat, had a hot plate made on top of this. It was just great. It was really, really good. I
Well,
got him in the unit.
the thing that was smart about that story was Pedro told me there was a line outside of a cell. So he
Mhm.
just got in the line and told everybody to be quiet. He just kept moving up in the line. And when he got there, all he said was, when you get the last person, pack this up. Now, at first I was like, wait, why wouldn't you make him just do it right there? Because it's illegal. He's not supposed to have that in there. But Pedro Smartly was like, he's already fed about 10 people. Do you know what's going to happen if these last 10 people don't get, don't get their grilled cheese sandwich?
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Yeah,
said, ah,
I got more of an issue doing that than just hey, go ahead and eat and don't. But you
go
know,
ahead and eat, and then we'll take your punishment. But
well,
go ahead and
yeah,
finish up.
yeah, and
That's
they
it.
and they understood that. Malcolm, you being there, you understood that from us that I had to do a job, and
Exactly.
if I didn't do my job, you didn't respect me for not doing my job.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
those officers that didn't do a job, they were not respected at all. You knew they were there, and he's just there. He's just breathing air. Cool.
Malcolm, if someone's not doing their job, does that tell you that this person is possibly easy to be compromised?
I'm gonna say to a degree because I just want to be honest. Some of the female officers who I've seen escorted out of the prison for having relationships with the males,
Mhm.
those would be the last females that you ever thought would do that because they were the most meanest and strictest. But I believe that was to keep up their facade.
Keep up the okay.
Yeah, but you couldn't tell. I mean, when it happened, you would be like, "No way, not Miss such and such," because she was the meanest. She gonna shake you. She gonna shake your cell down. She gonna might not be the nicest attitude, and but it was a facade. And I've seen it. I was in, like I said, almost 18 years, and that's probably always how it unfolded. The last one that you would suspect of doing that, yeah. So it varies. For men,
That's true.
yeah. I've seen an officer actually when I seen a guy making a meal, I seen an officer bring him an onion and say, "Hey, make sure you make me a couple of them wraps." And later on in that situation, the officer lost his job for some other things that he was bringing in. So I think with the females, it was just a little different. They had to be a little more discreet.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
it happened, and it happens more often than you think. I mean,
Yeah,
and it is usually like you said, is that person you what? I can't believe no, and Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have broke your heart if it was Pedro, not Mr. Lugo.
Yeah.
No, you probably would have had to fight that one. No, no, I'll believe anybody but that one.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh man,
Exactly.
that's crazy. When you went to, did you have kids before you went to jail?
When I was indicted, I I went on a run, but right when I got right maybe like a couple months before I was indicted, I was given the news that a, a female I was involved with was pregnant. And so I went on a run from North Carolina, and the U.S. Marshals caught me in Buffalo, New
Oh,
York.
wait a minute. Hold on, because we didn't get this story that
No,
first episode. How was I'd like to dive in that a little bit. How nerve wracking was that? Like, how was that being on the run? Because you're on the run. It sounds great. They always make it look awesome in the movies, but you don't have money. You still need to do this thing called eat. Like,
live.
So so for me, being on the run was when I seen the individuals who ultimately became my co-defendants. When
mhm,
I seen them getting arrested, I immediately put my hand on some money that I could put my hand on at
mhm.
that time, and I immediately fled North Carolina. And so I'm living the same lifestyle that I was living prior to to being on the run for maybe like a good 2 to 3 months. And at that point, I had to try to, because I couldn't get a job. I'm wanted. I had to go back. I resorted to doing what I know how to do, but on a smaller scale. And I think that was okay. But the biggest thing to me, my biggest thing, because I was a ex. What I am now, I am an ex drug dealer, and so that was my lifestyle. So the fast money, the fast women, the cars, and the drinking, the smoking good weed, and all that came with that life. It sort of feeds your ego. And so I went from being this particular person to now I'm having to budget and manage. It crushed my ego more than anything, being on the run.
You
And
know,
so when the feds finally got me, I think I was just so ready to get it over with. It was like a sigh of relief for me, to be honest with you.
a sign of relief because you didn't have to run no more. You were just at some point in time. I imagine you were like, oh my god! Every time you move around, you're looking behind your back. Basically, you always kind of worry. Who knows where I'm at? Who knows who am I talking to? You know.
Exactly.
So that's pretty nerve wracking living 24 hours a day like that, because it doesn't stop. It's not something, well, I go to sleep and I know you wake up in the middle of the night and you check the doors, look out the window. Your heart is going at 100 miles an hour, and you're like,
Yeah,
and it's like sleep is limited. It's stressful. And that's just stress. That's stress. I
yeah,
imagine when you got caught, it was like, well, uh, let's face the piper now and see where we go.
exactly.
Okay. So you were in Buffalo, New York. I didn't know that when they caught you.
Yeah, I was actually born in Buffalo, New York, and we moved to Winston-Salem when I was like 5. But over the years, I've been back and forth. So it was just a place that I could go at that time, where people wasn't as familiar with me, and I still had family ties, and you know, was able to lay low and move like that for 7 months. For 7 months until I
How did the
discovered.
How did the marshals find you anyway?
Well, when I actually left, I a, a female who I was involved with at the time, me and her drove to Buffalo, and she actually had her mother to keep her son. So for whatever reason, once the feds started doing their investigation back in Winston and found out, where I live, they went to her because she just stayed for a week. I told her she had to go back home. So, but once she got home and the feds started questioning her, she told me, she said, "Look, they are talking about they're gonna take my child. They're gonna take my child from me, and I'm gonna go to jail." I said, "Listen, let them do whatever they have to do to catch me, and you tell them where you took me. And when they catch me, they catch me." I didn't want to jeopardize her life and her
Right.
child being separated from her child. So, me being the man I am, I told her on the phone, "Tell them where you took me. They still have to find me." And so it was about probably about 5 months that I was still on the run after me and her had the conversation. So
Well,
they knew where to look, but I think I, was staying in till it was dark, and I was still starting to try to make some money so I can
Well, this
continue
is
to
hold on.
live.
This is I want to mention because what you just said, and I have to always say this because people will be in the comments thinking I'm praising an ex criminal or something. It's not trying to make someone like Malcolm is accountable for what he did.
Yes, sir.
That's one of the things, and it's not saying praising him for anything. 'Cause I always used to say I hate going to a funeral back where I live, and it's some drug dealer and he dies, and everybody's talking about how great of a person he was, and I'm like, what? He sold us all crack, you know.
yeah.
But you can be a criminal and not be a total monster. You could have said you keep your mouth shut and you don't tell them a damn thing, and you could have threatened her. You could have just been a total monster, but you were a person that grew up in an unfortunate situation. You picked a route to get out of that situation that wasn't the best route to pick, but you weren't a total monster. You said, "I'm not going to put this woman and her ability to have her kid on the line. Tell them where I'm at, and I'll deal with the consequences."
Exactly.
That's how you can know someone's not just a total monster.
Yeah, and and now you mentioned that, and I think that's what's make the difference for you now as a father,
Yes, sir.
because you have three wonderful kids.
Four, four counting.
You got one
I
that's
had
older. I just know the three. I never met the older one, the older
older child. Yeah,
girl,
yeah.
but I met your other ones, and they're like you just spit them out. I
Well,
mean,
wait a minute, Pedro. He has 5 kids.
Four.
No, you got 5 because we have a special guest. No, I'm just kidding.
Molly Povich. Yes, sir.
that would have been too much. No,
Too much. That'd have been too
you
much.
got red over that one. I'm like, what the hell are you talking
Yeah.
about?
You're like, oh, we ain't got no special guests. No, we don't.
What are you talking about? No, because I've met his kids and I watched what he's done with them, and I think that right there tells me that even though you weren't thinking about um, having kids at the moment, you wouldn't be able to do that. But once you had your kids, you realize, or better yet, you were preparing yourself at some point in time. You knew the humanity of a parent. You knew the humanity of them going through that loss of a child if they take that child away from her. So you had that in mind, and you didn't want nobody else to go through that. And I can see that with your kids because
Yes, sir.
you do you do everything with them. I love that you're always there with them for them, and you work hard. One thing about Malcolm, he works very hard. He has his long shifts, but anytime he's home, he's there with those kids. Um,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm proud of you for that. That's
Well,
just
yeah, that's
Thank
the
you,
one thing
sir.
you don't do
yeah.
complain. I'll see people get out of prison and they have to take a job, or I've seen people that are working 12 hours a day and they're like, I can't do this. I'm gonna go back. No, no, no. Look, it's not supposed to be easy. You made life choices and now
Hmm.
you're here. I mean, that freedom. I mean, you rather work those 12-hour shifts or you rather go back to that system. And sadly, some people will choose to go back
Go back.
to that system. It's almost like I got to make sure I'm not drawing a comparison between the military and prison, but me and Pedro both did 20 years plus in the military. And one thing I say to people when they go, the military is hard. I said, well, not really in the beginning until you become a leader. And they go, why? I said, because it's a place where they tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and you're on my time frame. You have no free will to just do whatever you want. And some people need that. Some people can't handle the ability to be out with their thoughts and what they want to do, and that's sad to me, but it's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I initially came home,
Hmm.
I was working 85 hours a week. I had one full-time job and two part-time jobs. My full-time job was during the day, and I had two part-times at night. When one part-time didn't need me, I was at the other part-time. So it evened out to about 85 hours a week. And to be honest with you, I would get a fleeting thought. I'd be lying if I say I didn't ever get a thought to, you know what, this is not working out. But I stayed the course, and now, without having a college degree, I have a job where I make well over 100 and something thousand a year
Hmm.
because I stayed the course. I stayed true to what I said I was going to do. And I work a 12-hour job, but I'm not doing 85 hours a week
Correct.
anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, but by staying focused and just sticking to what I was said I was going to be true to, having children now who I'm responsible for, me and their mother, we co-parent. Um, that's pretty much that's the extent of my life. I want to make sure, that whenever I leave this old planet, that my children who I consciously helped bring into the world, that they would never have to take the route that I took in life. And their mother is so instrumental in making that happen as well. So yeah, that's
That's
pretty
why I
much.
get very pissed when people call ex, whatever you want to call it, ex-con, ex-inmate, ex-prisoner. I hate it when they refer to them in the present tense. I was watching a video of this guy getting pulled over, and he was given such a hard time because they said, well, you're a criminal. And he's like, no, I'm an ex-con. I got out 7 years ago. Stop calling me a criminal. I
Mm,
haven't committed a crime in 7 years. And some people will just not get out of that mindset that, you know, because you spent time in prison, that's what you'll always be. And that's another part that disgusts me. Chris McPhail says, were you provided a mentor or a support person during your reintroduction, like a recovering alcoholic gets a sponsor? If not, what would that have helped? So what was the
Before you answer that question for him,
uh,
Malcolm, the thing is, we rehearsed a lot of this stuff, and we talked about this before you got out.
yes,
Before
sir.
you hit the streets, this is something we actually have talked about. And this is something I've mentioned to a lot of the inmates. You're gonna have to get out. You're gonna have a job. You're gonna probably get another job. Probably get another job. You might be working on long hours. And we talked about this, and we talked about a number of scenarios, and we talked about that moment that you're gonna be like, "Well, I can't do this no more. I'm just gonna sit back." And
Exactly.
go back. And we had guys in our class telling us that they did that. That's why they were back in jail. And they
Mhm.
regretted so much that they blew that second opportunity again. And I think that is what helped. The mentorship, I think it starts more not just when you get out, but inside the prison before you get out. And that's the thing Malcolm did. He was already putting everything in place. He knew it wasn't going to be easy. He knew it wasn't going to be what pink champagne and roses again, nothing like that. He knew that, and he prepared for it. But did you get a mentor when you got out? Listen,
I was my own mentor. I was my mentor. Freedom was my mentor. Uh, when I left prison, I was familiar with the recidivism rate, and at that time it was that 85% of the people that leave prison return in less than 3 years. I told myself, and I believe you may have heard me say it, I said, count me in that 15% that never come back. Um, it's a verse in the Bible I always refer to. It say a double-minded man is wavering in all his ways. One thing I noticed about people conversation in prison is that they say, well, I can't say what I'm not going to do if I'm put in that situation. And I was always the opposite. I was, I can say what I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to do the things that I've said I'm not going to do. And so, with that being stated, that was my mentality. Selling drugs wasn't an option for me. Going back to that lifestyle, it wasn't an option. And all I just continued to tell myself. I had a moment one time when before I had my three jobs. Initially, I was working one job, and I think my check came. I had my first car. This was about 90 days after I was home. I had my first car, and so I got my check. I received my check, and I think the check was about 200 and something dollars. And my car payment was I think $200 every 2 weeks because I didn't have credit. So I had to get a car from a buy here, whatever finance here type of place, and they help you build your credit. So, but you had to make a payment every 2 weeks. And so my check was like 200 and something dollars. And the truth is, I looked at it, I teared up, and I said, you know what? I'm a grown man. I can't do nothing with this little check right here. And I called a friend and I said, man, look, I tried. He said, man, look, because let me say this. I wasn't an individual who, when I got my time, told on a lot of people, made deals with the government to bring down other people to shorten my time. So, just saying that to say that I still had a good reputation on the street. And so, individuals told me, hey, look, whenever you ready, I got you. You don't need no money. I'll front it to you. Multiple people told me that. And so at that time, looking at that check, I said, you know what? It's time to make that call with tears in my eyes. And I just called a friend, and he said, look, before you do that, why don't you get you another job to see if that can help out? And so I went and got two jobs, and that helped out. But I was pretty much my own mentor. I had, like I said, that one moment, and but I just want to go on record to say I've been home now. I think going on 13 years, and I've never committed a crime. I've never went back into that life. Never touched it. None, nothing of those on those levels. And so I was my own mentor. It's all about you and what you want to do. If you got a weak mind and you know you're gonna go back to what you know, then that's what you're gonna do. But the best mind is a made up mind. And now my mind made up even three times more because I had three children since I've been home. And like Mr. Lugo say, that's my life. If I'm not working, I'm with my children. I don't
Wait,
hang out. I don't club. I
wait,
don't.
wait.
That's it.
You had you got home and then you had three kids.
When I came home 2012, my first son was born 2013.
Okay, well we know what else you missed while you were in prison. You know, man, you got home and got three kids. Okay.
Hey, if it's any addiction that I have, it's that. It ain't nothing else.
Yeah. Okay. But you know what? Hey, you you took care of that responsibility. It is a big difference of getting out of prison and the only person that you have to take care of is yourself. It
Mm,
is different if someone comes out of prison and you already got those 3 kids.
yeah,
That's a and I think sometimes that helps in that recidivism rate. I gave the example earlier, you come out with a guy with 3, 4 kids, you ain't got time to make little chunk change. You
mm,
know, you've got 4 people staring at you, the 3 kids and the baby's mama. It's
yeah,
all staring at you
yeah,
like, "All right, you out, now what?" Um,
exactly.
Yeah.
so very blessed for that. And you have a good relationship with the child that you had, when you went into prison.
Perfect relationship. I
Oh,
when I
that's
met her, she was 17,
mhm,
about to turn 18, because she was born like 7 months after I was in. So she was 17 when I came home, and we had a test, and she was 99.9% my child, and we just been bonding ever since.
how did you work in that introduction? Because that's a delicate thing for well, first, how much communication had you had before you got out? And then when you got out, how did you work in that meeting? Because that's a hard thing for people to think about or know how to do. You can do it, it can go the wrong way.
Deal with, yeah.
Um, you know,
we
how
we
did
never
you do
we
that?
never had communication because her mother raised her thinking that somebody else was her father.
Mm,
But her grandmother, may she rest in peace, always told her that's not your real. Well, told her when she was older, later on in life, that that wasn't her real father.
mhm.
And I'm gonna tell you something I did because I had a relationship with not the mother but the grandmother. I wrote the grandmother letters to give to the daughter when she gets old enough to read them.
Ah,
So
okay.
I would write her like you're not, you're a child at the time, but whenever you get older, you'll read and know that I'm not in your life, but I wanted to, but things took place, and so she actually had those letters that I wrote to her grandmother for her when I came home, and she still have them to this day. And so I think that played a role in her knowing that even though I wasn't there, I wanted to be. And that same type of love that I had for a child that was mine that I never met, I have that same love and energy for the 3 children that I seen come out the womb. And
Uh,
I don't know, it's just that's
well,
where I'm at as a father.
that's definitely love because it's easy to write letters in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but
Exactly.
you kept that up. That shows that you had a commitment to make sure. That's nice. Chris says you're fortunate to have that discipline. Be proud of yourself. It's rare.
Yeah. And check, Malcolm, I don't know if you can see that, but this is a letter you wrote to me years ago when
Wow.
you got out. I still have it. And the one thing you said here is, Mr. Lugo, hopefully all is well with you, sir. It is truly a blessing to be a free man.
Yes, sir.
That was the opening statement of
You
this
sent me
letter.
a copy of that letter. I like what you put in paragraph 3. You said, and the least you could have did was offer me a room to stay in.
Oh no, he was. I think I gave a lot of people, some try to help them with jobs, and then they got on. Actually, they got on us. They got on me one time, Malcolm, because somebody called to the prison using me as a reference, and are you giving people's name to you? Well, I'm like, I'm a counselor. How are they supposed to get a job if somebody doesn't give them a reference? They never had a job before in their life. Well,
Right.
you understand, but this is kind of not your job. I'm saying, like, what is my job?
Mm,
Right. If you can't call,
What is
if I'm trying to hire, that's my thing I was saying earlier. If Malcolm comes to me and you know what, I interview him, I said, yeah, he has a criminal past, but dang, he sounds like he's gonna be an asset. Well, one of the people I'd like to call is his counselor from prison to kind of get
Oh,
a beat on, God, we just don't
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't go, we go out of our way to imprison people, but we don't go out of our way to help them rehabilitate, which was supposed to be the whole damn purpose of prison. But that's a whole nother show talking about private prisons and how we're just making money. Well, Malcolm, I thought you were from New York. I keep forgetting you're from North Carolina. You see the thing they're doing up in New York, um, Pedro, where they were supposed to renovate Rikers Island, but now they're talking about getting rid of Rikers Island and pushing that each borough have its own prison, which means it's going to be a private prison, which we already know what that means. If every one of those boroughs have private prisons, we already know where that's going.
yeah.
Yeah,
And what make us this is what a lot, this is
well,
what
I'm
a lot
sorry.
of people don't know for
We
private
s-
prisons.
we spend more money housing one prisoner than we will to pay for 10 people's schooling from K to college.
No, I'm going to tell you this. This is what a lot of people don't realize about private prisons. When they make the private prison, they make it with a requirement. This is how many inmates I have to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
I need 30,000 inmates for my corporation to maintain people in prison.
Yes.
They have a number of people you gotta have in prison for my prison to run. So for me to get that, guess what's happening? I'm arresting people left and right to be able to
Yeah.
get those numbers.
You know how I learned about that, not even thinking about prisons, because I used to work at a group home, you know,
Yeah.
15 plus years ago, and I became the manager of group home. And then that's what opened my eyes because when I take the kids out, if let's say I'm at the gas station and one of the kids steals bubble gum, I'm supposed to let the owner, I'm not supposed to pay for it. We let the owner call the police and that kid gets arrested because they have to learn repercussions, right? But there was one kid named Noe that we were told you never let the cops get called on Noe. And I never knew why. I thought maybe because he was Hispanic, I thought maybe he wasn't, maybe because they told me because his parents are back in Mexico and if he gets arrested, he's going to get deported. That's what they told me back then. This is 15 years ago, right? But what I found out while now I'm the manager doing the books and I'm looking at how much money each kid brings in, it was anywhere between 22 to sometimes $3,000. Noe brought in $10,500 a month. And that's why we could not call the police.
You
I said, this
know,
isn't, and I got yelled at one day because the owner came because they're supposed to stay inside after 5. It's 6 o'clock and we were walking the neighborhood and he said, what are you doing? I said, because 3 of them were overweight. I said, we're exercising. He goes, they're not supposed to be up by 5. Why are they exercising? And why did you get Abraham a library card? I said, because Abraham can't read. I was like, what am I doing here? This isn't rehabilitation.
no.
This is I need people in my beds so that I can make a
Yeah.
profit.
I did the same thing, Keone. I worked in a home with kids and stuff, and I had to come in the evenings and teach them how to cook and
Mhm.
having days, you spend time, hey, how do you clean up, make up a room, take them to the store, how to behave around other people. Yeah, and I had one that my job was to escort him to school and be in school with him.
Mhm.
I would go to school and sit in school. And this, I still have my other job. And just like I always
Yeah,
had more than one job. So
it's just crazy. We are not in the business of rehabilitation
no,
anymore,
no, no. It's a
and
business.
that's the
It's a
thing.
business.
You know, that's the thing. The amount of people, and I encourage everybody who's watching this to go back and watch Malcolm's first interview. Also, watch some of the other interviews, and you'll see when you talk to these people, you're like, these are everyday people that I see all the time. These aren't hardened, evil criminals that are out to just destroy the world. Some people are put in situations, and it's the ones that take accountability for it, like Malcolm, that we need to help survive. For every Malcolm, Malcolm gave the percentages, 85%, right? Malcolm, you said.
Yes, sir.
So that means I'm not a mathematician, but for every Malcolm I've met 15 non-Malcolms that
There you
wanted
go.
to do what Malcolm was doing, but didn't get the chance.
Yes, sir.
And then people will say this stupid thing. And what do you have? I want to know what both of you have to say to this. When they're put in that situation where they can't be rehabilitated, they're not getting the assistance they need to get a job and become a productive member of society. And people will say, well, they made their choice. They committed a crime. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Like,
Ooh,
I
important. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would personally say that if everybody who committed crime had the money of Donald Trump, then they might not be in prison.
oh, well, there you go. Yeah, because there's a whole lot of people committing crime.
You gotta have a lawyer. Some many so often is all about who you have as a lawyer. Because
Mhm.
Malcolm, you see that you talking to people in prison. Sometimes you be like, what? You're here for what? And then you have nobody help you. And I read enough cases and through enough files to realize, man, if he just had a lawyer, he wouldn't be doing time.
Exactly.
But it's just a lot of people don't realize the situations we get put into. And I always tell, and Malcolm knows this, is what I call it is a thin line between going to prison and stay out of prison. It's
Oh,
a very
oh,
line. And you can just fall over at any time. And I don't care who you are, for anything that you do. It could be just somebody saying that you did it. Now
it
you
takes
have to prove that somebody that said that you did it, that you didn't do it or you weren't there. Now I got the odds against me. I don't care. They say, what is it? You're innocent to proving guilty.
it it takes a it takes a split second. I remember I was talking about I'm not proud of this, but in my 20s, I lived in Miami. We went out 5, 6 days a week. I don't know how many times I drove home and don't remember how I got home. All it could have took was one accident to make me a disgusting, vile human being, especially if I hit a child or the wrong person. I'm no different. I mean, I'm not saying I'm no different than the person that
No,
used to do that. I am, but I was not. But that decision could have went the wrong way at any moment, and then that would have changed everybody's perspective on who I was. But I want to show this little quick video, and I want to get both of your responses. It's This is about listening, but there's also a hidden message in this about the question that the judge asked. Here we go.
I was rejected from jury duty. There was a woman who was robbed. She said he robbed her, the groceries took it, and then ran off. The cops found the guy. He was not in possession of anything she said he took. They looked in the area if anything stashed in dumpsters or anything. They didn't find anything. It's a literal he said, she said. The judge reads the particulars and goes, does anyone think they would not be able to convict based on the kind of information and evidence that's been presented? I said, yes, I'd have a problem if the only evidence available is eyewitness testimony. Then everything I know tells me I should not trust it on the level where you end up putting someone in jail. What the judge said next was, are there any other jurors who need more than one witness before they would be able to convict? And I said, should I jump in now and say, that's not what I said? What should I do? The person in front of me said, Your Honor, that's not what he said. And I said, oh, thank you. And I resisted with all my might to say, Your Honor, you were eyewitness to what I said 20 seconds ago and got it wrong.
I mean, that sums it up in a nutshell. Eyewitness testimony is the worst thing ever. And the fact that the judge is not even listening already lets me know that whoever that defendant was, he's screwed. The defendant is screwed already, and the case hasn't even the trial hasn't even started. He's screwed.
yeah.
Mm.
But from my side, as the law enforcement side, I will say that really comes down now as a good investigator, a good police officer that does a good police work, that knows how to make the difference when the witness is not that they're not being truthful, is being objective of what they're saying and understanding, being okay. I can comprehend what they just said, but then this is not right, or let me do further investigation. Let me look into this a little bit better.
Well,
and
you can.
just be superficial and say, well, I just got all the information to be done because I want to move on to my next thing. A good police officer, good detective, good investigator knows that in that moment I'm holding this man's future and life in my hand. And those are the good cops.
Yeah, but you also just gave the example earlier that we also have places where people need to meet quotas. So,
That's the issue. Now that's the issue. Some people want to make quotas. And when that happens, then that's not the law. That just cuts that. That's taking that away from me. Oh, I want you to make the quotas. I need you to make these many arrests. I need you to make these many stops. I need you to make these many, and don't matter who it is. Well, it's better for you if you stop more of the colored people or this people than these people, because those are most likely the people you're going to catch doing something wrong.
yeah, well, I mean, that goes without saying. If you go into a town that's all Irish, your rates of Irish arrests are going to go up, you know. But that's the only people that said about are minorities. Chris said, "Be nice if the time was done, the opportunities to better yourself were present instead of a label convict is given and you pay for life. Regardless of time served, our judicial system is shit." And that's true for most of the fact, from my point of view, that it is shit because we talked about earlier, we see people do more serious things and they go to jail for less time. You could go to jail, you could be a person that's a CEO and still $10 million of all your employees' pension funds and caused, let's see, 700 employees to be broke, and you will get less time in federal prison than someone who does something that may have harmed themselves or they robbed a store or something. I don't know, but it's just saying it's lawyers. They can afford better lawyers. Um, and one of the things we stigmatize, not only do we stigmatize people who are arrested or serving time in prison, we stigmatize defense lawyers because a lot of people don't understand what defense lawyers are. They think they call them pieces of crap because they're defending people who are criminals. A defense lawyer's main job is not to get you off. That's what everybody thinks. A defense lawyer's job is to make sure that your process is proper and correct and that you get due process
Right.
and that you don't get shafted. You don't get excessive time. You don't, if you're a first time offender for something, you're not getting something that a second or third time offender would get. That's defense attorney's job, but a lot of people have misconceptions because all they do is watch TV and movies.
Which that's what they are, TV and movies.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the R word out here because YouTube will blink me, but people who are watching, you can read that on your. You know what, Malcolm, you brought this up early, and I used to say this when Barack Obama became president. I said that told the world that anybody could truly be president. And then we have a president now. It's like, no, this proves that anybody can be president.
Anybody can be president. So
Oh my
just,
God. It's
just
just it's
saying.
just crazy. It's
But
crazy. But that's the way the world works.
world
But
we live in is the world we live in, and we can all just keep. Um, we just got to make it better.
well,
That's
we the people have to do it. We can't rely on the government or people to put programs together, even though they should, to help inmates. I love these companies now that hire vets and have their like gateway programs to hire people who have got out of prison because they understand too. They need a workforce and they understand, hey, the less people out here committing crimes, the better for everybody.
but and that's the goal right there. The more people we have working, yes. And the other thing that really we did a panel in Durham. This was years ago, and one of the biggest things that prevents crime at the end of the day is education. Having really good education system and what makes the big difference.
Education and resources.
Yeah,
Education and
education
resources.
and resources, but start with education. And
Yeah,
this is what we lack. We don't
yeah.
educate our children correctly. Not just not oh, they should be at home. No, well, yeah, but most of the time kids that spend time in school and they don't teach them, and then we hire people who really don't care
You spend more time
at school
in
and outside
school
the
with
house.
teachers, coaches, friends than you do your actual family when you're growing up until you're 18. That's who the majority of your time is spent with. The majority of time that you're home is your sleeping hours through your 18 years of living. You're asleep for most of the time that you're home.
But and then some people just don't have the strength or the dedication. Yeah, hats off to you, Malcolm,
Yeah.
because I know you work long hours, and we talked about this before, and I know you work some long hours, but you make sure you make it an objective, you make it a purpose that when your kids, you spend time, you make sure they're getting everything they need.
Exactly.
And it's not just, well, yeah, they need a house and they need some food. No, but you give them, you treat them. I was talking to you last night, and it's bedtime. It's y'all going to bed, and it's like it's not even 9 o'clock. They're going to bed. You going to bed. Get yourself to. And I hear them. I'm going upstairs. I'm on the phone right now. You ask, and it's not even going on 9 o'clock. So you got
Dang,
to have that structure. You
I
got to
feel
have
bad.
that he has for his kids, and and I know he takes them out. He goes places because he posts stuff, and I see it all the time. If not, I can't say that's what we need. And a lot of times we forget how to do that. Some parents just don't know how to do that.
I feel bad. I don't go to bed till 3 a.m.
But
I feel
that's
terrible.
yeah, that's because
Mr.
your brain,
Lugo,
our brain don't stop.
Mr. Lugo, I give them that structure so they don't have to go to the correctional facility to get structure. They already have it.
You already know it. You already know this, and you're going to go to bed.
Ah,
Maybe it eases up later on, but you gotta give them the structure now. And a lot of times
It's
kids
gonna
don't.
happen.
We don't
It's
have
gonna
enough education for people to have, say, a good job or
well,
find
educate.
out how to get
Yeah,
that job and then not have to
education is a
work.
resource.
Because if Malcolm was working 3 or 4 different jobs right now, those 3 jobs that he began with, it will be very hard for him to do what he's doing now. But he's been blessed, and he's been able to put things in place to where he's at now, that he's able to dedicate
He
that.
would have still done the interview. He would have still done it. He would have half asleep, but he would have still done it. Malcolm, the first interview we interviewed you a lot. This one we did more of a praising you. You didn't know that was going to happen. You probably thought you were going to talk a lot more, but we wanted to make this episode a special one to just congratulate you and thank you for being such a great person, great father, and coming on here being the first person that we interviewed. And we love to see that you're doing well. Every single person that we interviewed is doing well. So
oh,
recidivism rates can kiss my ass. Okay. Because if
exactly.
people are allowed, as a community, we have to do better as people. You know, if you're a manager out there and you see someone, you're doing the damn interview. If you're a good manager, you should tell if this employee, you're hiring non ex criminals that are terrible employees. So you should be able to judge the character of the person sitting in front of you. I do understand if that, you got arrested for money laundering. I'm not going to hire you as a cashier. I get that. I get that part. But there's jobs out here we can do. Malcolm, thank you so much for coming
Yes, sir.
on and spending time with us. Pedro, I'll let you take us out.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Keone, for bringing us on here as well. But Malcolm,
And
thank
Chris.
and, and Chris, thank you, Chris, for hanging out with us. But Malcolm, thank you so much for this
Thank you.
episode
I
and
appreciate
for
y'all having me.
um, allowing me to talk to you again, allowing me to continue this friendship because I consider you a friend. So
Yes,
just know that, and I will tell that anybody.
Ooh, and Pedro, sorry, I forgot. And we're gonna interview him. It's 2025. We're gonna interview him in 2028. So he'll probably be up to 6 kids. So
Oh, we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching on the count. Um, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Have a great day, everyone. See y'all next go around. I'm your host, Pedro Lugo. Say goodbye. See y'all later. Be blessed. Be
Have a
safe.
good one.
have a
All
good one.
right.